She did not know her own name when Maren found her. Not the name that mattered, the name that would have gotten her killed. Maren wrapped the infant in salvage cloth, carried her into the warrens of dust, and spent the next 23 years teaching her everything except the one thing she needed to know. Dust is what happens when a civilization is erased so thoroughly that even the planet forgets what it was. Rust-orange metallite stretching to a chemical-hazed horizon. 12,000 people in the corridors below, trading water for components. Components for water, never quite fast enough. Serethi Voss learned to survive here the way everything on Dust survived. By staying small, staying anonymous, and never asking where the scavenged progenitor parts came from. The night Maren's mineral paste throat finally gave out, she pulled Serethi close in the amber-lit corridor and whispered coordinates into her ear. Not a location, a direction. And then she pressed the data chip necklace into Serethi's hands. One chip for each civilization Maren had memorized. And the geological voice went silent for the last time. Serethi did not cry. She committed the coordinates to memory, wrapped the necklace around her own wrist, and went back to work. She would grieve later. Later never came. The first sign appeared 3 weeks after Maren's death. A faint, luminous trace at the base of Serethi's skull, visible only when she swept her collar aside in the mirror of a failing dome's cracked polycarbonate. She pressed her fingers to it. It did not hurt. It pulsed, faintly, like a second heartbeat she had not agreed to. The Kailumar exchange was not a place Serethi would have chosen. It was a place the coordinates chose for her. A wheel-shaped station spinning against a dwarf star's dim red light. Its corridors full of people who needed discretion more than they needed comfort. Dr. Eolan Mars operated out of a private clinic on the medical ring's outer arc. And when Serethi sat down on the scan table and let the diagnostic lenses sweep her, Eolan's expression did something complicated and went still. The genome mapping took 4 hours. When Eolan finally spoke, she said 3 words: House Solabri, alive. Serethi left the clinic without speaking. She stood in the station concourse with the dwarf star's red light bleeding through the viewport slits and understood, for the first time, why Maren had told her nothing. Some knowledge is a sentence. You carry it until you can choose what to do with it, or until it chooses for you. Kale Thyros found her in the concourse 40 minutes later. He had been looking for her for 6 months, following a thread Vex Karen had pulled from the Silent Choir's oldest files. A genetic marker in a Deathworld infant, flagged and buried, never acted on. He sat down across from her in a tea vendor's alcove, his matte black prosthetic hand resting on the table between them, joint mechanisms catching the overhead light. He did not introduce himself. He said, "Your bloodline ends the succession crisis or starts a war. Possibly both. I need to know which you prefer." Serethi looked at his hand, then at his face. Then she said, "I prefer neither." He said, "That option closed about 12 centuries ago." On Phelan, the chemical storm wall rolled across the bone-white salt flat like a judgment. Inside the central dome, old Senna sat at the ring's center, her data chip necklaces clicking with each breath, her milky white eyes finding Serethi across the haze of mineral paste vapor with a precision that had nothing to do with sight. The Ash Singers had been carrying a message for 100 years. Tonight, old Senna would deliver it. She sang. The welcome song that Serethi had heard in fragments all her life resolved into something else entirely when old Senna sang it whole. The progenitor phrase embedded in the melody's third movement activated something at the base of Serethi's skull. The binding scars flared white, and Serethi pressed both hands to the floor mat to keep from falling. The phrase was not a greeting, it was a warning. The cradle was never meant to be opened from the outside. Old Senna stopped singing. In the silence, her throat made a sound like gravel settling. She had known for 60 years that the song contained something she could not read. She had sung it faithfully anyway. Her hands, trembling at rest, went still. She died before morning. The welcome song she had sung every evening changed key for the first and last time, and she wept without knowing she was weeping. In the regent's chamber at the top of the throne spire, Lysera Aethenis pressed her right hand flat against the conference table to stop the tremors. 3 patches on her mantle had gone dark since she took office. The intelligence report in front of her was brief. Serethi Voss confirmed Solabri bloodline, last seen departing Phelan. The binding scars were accelerating. Lord Thyros's fleet was moving toward the Velaris Nebula, and the Quiet Edict, which had held for 800 years, was about to be broken by a dead man's weapon array. She looked at the throne spire's shadow falling across the lower tiers of Ethan below. Then she ordered her fleet to intercept. The drift cannon fired once. In the Velaris Nebula's violet and gold gas clouds, a habitable moon, 60,000 people, 3 landing pads, agricultural domes catching the nebula's light, ceased to exist in the time it takes to draw a breath. The gas clouds bleached to pale grey in a sphere 300 kilometres across. Molten fragments trailed orange and red into the darkness. Aboard a cramped shuttle transiting toward the nebula, Serethi felt the discharge before she saw it. The binding scars at her neck ignited. Not glowing, but burning, a white-hot trace from her skull to her collarbone. And she bit down on the sound she almost made. The medical monitoring equipment jury-rigged to her armrests spiked into ranges Ireland had marked in red. 60,000 people. She had not known any of their names. She knew them now, in the way you know a weight you have just been handed and cannot put down. Kale's shuttle received Vex Karen's transmission in the same moment. Lord Thyros had fired the drift cannons. The Quiet Edict was broken. House Thyros was now at war with every other power in the galaxy simultaneously, and Lord Thyros's implant was blazing white in the holding cell footage Vex had pulled from the transport ship's internal feeds. The man and the signal were sharing a skull, and the man was losing. Kyle sat in the pilot's seat with his prosthetic hand on the controls and looked at the transmission for a long moment. Then he changed course toward the transport ship. He found his father in the holding cell, the magnetic locks on the chair, the implant blazing amber to white, the hull panels around Lord Thyros showing faint luminous veins, the ship's dormant progenitor systems responding to his presence. Lord Thyros looked at his son with the fraction of his face that was still his own and said, "The severing of your hand was a mercy, a traitor's mark, so the choir would classify you as dead rather than hunted." Whether that was true or a dying man's justification, the old lord's voice dropped into the harmonic register that no human throat should produce. He could not say any more. Kyle said nothing. He stayed until the implant blazed white and his father's eyes went somewhere else. Then he left. In the sunken archive's spherical chamber, Valen Drace knelt before the flat panel that had risen from the floor, his long, ink-stained fingers moving over the progenitor script as it rearranged itself around his touch. 30 years of scholarship. The chamber hummed at a frequency felt in his teeth and sternum. The geometric object at the chamber's center had resolved from its shifting forms into a stable shape, a translucent map of the galaxy with 3 points of brilliant light. One was the throne spire, one was the seed beneath dust, the third was the cradle. Valan transmitted what he had found to Serethi's shuttle with a single line of his own appended. The return protocol executes automatically when conditions are met. It is not a choice, it is a trigger. You are already most of the way there. Tessith Karen, kneeling beside him with her notation tablet scratched full of microglyphs, had already transmitted the same translation to the ledger's encrypted channel 20 minutes earlier. She did not look up from her tablet. Valen did not look at her. The weight of what she had done sat between them like a third body in the chamber. Serethi's ship entered the Cradle's approach corridor alone. The dark sphere between the two brown dwarf stars began separating along geometric fault lines as she crossed the threshold, each section rotating and extending outward, the interior blazing blue-white through the gaps. By the time she reached the central chamber, the Cradle had opened completely. A vast architecture of impossible geometry unfolded around her, every surface covered in script that moved like language being thought rather than written. The progenitor intelligence reconstituted from cascading script into something vaguely humanoid. Not a body, but a presence. Geometric configurations too precise to be random, too alien to be comforting. It did not speak, it waited. The binding scars on Serethi's neck and jaw blazed white hot, and she understood, with a clarity that had nothing to do with comfort, that the return protocol was already executing. That she was the door the progenitors had built. That walking in here had been, in a technical sense, the choice. Eolin's voice came through the shuttle's comlink. Serethi had left the channel open deliberately. The binding scars are overwriting your baseline cognition. You have perhaps 6 hours before the merge is irreversible. The timeline is merge, and the progenitors return through you, or sever and burn out the binding permanently. Those are the options. I am sorry there are only 2. Serethi stood in the center of the Cradle's palm and looked at the reconstituting intelligence and thought about Maren's hands. The mineral paste residue darkening the creases, the necklace of data chips, the voice that carried through collapsed tunnels like something geological. She thought about old Senna singing a warning she could not read for 60 years. She thought about 60,000 people on a moon she had never visited. She raised her hands. The binding scars blazed from her skull to her wrists, tracing every vein in luminous white. She spoke the severance command in the progenitor tongue, the phrase Valen had sent, the phrase old Senna had been carrying for a century without knowing its name. The words came out in the mineral paste resonance of an ash singer's voice, though she had never coated her throat. The binding scars burned white and then went dark. The reconstituting intelligence fragmented back into dormant code. The Cradle's light flickered and held, functional but no longer commanded, the network severed from its center. Serethi collapsed to the floor of the chamber. The floor lit faintly under her palms. Pressure glow, still responding, the infrastructure still running, now mortal and unmaintained, and hers to deal with. She pressed her forehead to the alien material and breathed. On dust, Kale stood at the center of the hexagonal fracture pattern in the rust-orange metallite. His father's body was wrapped in ship hull fabric at his feet. He had carried it here because the coordinates Serethi had shared pointed to this specific patch of wasteland, and because a man who had spent his life as a signal deserved to be buried in the ground that signal had been trying to reach. He placed the blade in the grave. He did not speak. The wind carried iron particulate across the geometric cracks in the earth, and far below, in a chamber that smelled of rain, something that had been waiting for 1,200 years began, very slowly, to count. Lysara Aethenis stood at the head of the conference table in the regent's chamber and reached up to the clasp at her throat. The mantle came away in her hands. White carbon weave trimmed in luminous thread, the star map updating in real time, 2 more patches dark since morning. She set it on the table. She did not put it back on. Outside the viewport, the throne spire rose into low orbit, its progenitor script glowing faintly blue in the early dark. And for the first time in 3 years, no one in the galaxy knew what it meant to sit beneath it. In the shuttle, Iolin was already running the diagnostic scan before Serethi had finished strapping in. The hazel eyes behind the augmented lenses flicked through spectra and went quiet. Then Iolin said, "First confirmed case of binding reversal in recorded history. I am going to need to write this down." She reached up and touched the corroded data chip at her throat without knowing she was doing it. She did not claim the throne. She did not destroy it. She left it standing in the spire's shadow, empty, and went home to a death world that was learning to remember its name. Beneath the rust-orange surface, in a chamber that smelled of rain, the seed waited. Not a weapon, but a terraforming engine. Not a grave, but a garden held in suspension for 1,200 years, waiting for someone to choose it. The control interface responded to language rather than blood. Understanding, not inheritance, opened this door. Serethi Voss had not been born to sit a throne. She had been born on a world that was itself a question, and she had lived long enough and paid enough to begin to answer it.